Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
By the time my marriage caught fire, I'd already spent 25 years teaching other people how not to panic when the room fills with smoke. Funny thing is, none of that training prepares you for when it's your own life burning down. My name's Ryan Hale. I'm 45, chief of the Denver Fire Department. That means I'm the guy in the white helmet at big calls, the one the news vans want to quote from after every warehouse fire or wind-fueled brush incident. I sign off on budgets, training plans, personnel decisions, and occasionally, thank you letters from third graders who think we literally sleep on fire trucks. It's a good job. It feels important. And for a long time, I thought I had the kind of life the department uses as recruiting material. Good career. Good house. Good marriage. My wife, Madison, was part of that pitch. Madison Hale, press secretary for the mayor's office. Smart, polished, sharp as a fresh razor. She could stand in front of a wall of microphones and turn a disaster into an opportunity to move forward together in about 20 seconds flat. People joked we were a public safety power couple. She handled the message, I handled the flames. We met 15 years earlier at a City Hall press conference about wildfire prep. I'd just come in from a field exercise, helmet hair, soot still on my boots. She was up there in heels and a perfect blazer, explaining our new evacuation plans like it was a movie trailer. When the mayor finished mumbling his talking points, she walked over, stuck out her hand, and said, "Chief Hale. I'm Madison Carter. I need you to stop saying the guys in interviews. Half your recruits are women now." I laughed. "Yes, ma'am. Guess I'll need a media coach." "Good thing you just met one," she said, and smiled. That was it. That was the spark. We were married 2 years later in a small ceremony in Estes Park, my guys forming an arch with axes as we walked out of the church. It felt solid. Like something you could build a life on. For a long time, we did. She worked late at City Hall. I worked late at the station. We'd meet in the middle, sometimes at 10 p.m. over cold takeout in our kitchen, sometimes at 2 a.m. At a scene if the press showed up and I needed someone to translate, we contained extension to the Bravo side into English. We understood each other's worlds. That's what I told myself, anyway. Turns out, understanding the world isn't the same as understanding the person standing next to you in it. It started small. Most fires do. I spend a lot of my life on 24-hour shifts. You get used to coming home smelling like smoke and sweat, crashing for a few hours, then reappearing in the kitchen like some kind of lumberjack ghost. For years, Madison would hug me, wrinkle her nose, and say, "You smell like you wrestled a campfire. Shower first, then I'll kiss you." It was a ritual. Familiar. Safe. Then one morning, I came home after a rough night, 3 calls back to back, one of them a nasty car wreck, and when I walked through the door, she flinched. "Can you not stomp around?" she snapped. "I have a briefing at 9, and I don't need to hear your boots from upstairs." I blinked. "Morning to you too," I said, trying to make it light. "I'm serious, Ryan," she said. "It's like you explode into the house. Can you not?" I told myself she was stressed. Mayor's office work wasn't exactly a spa day. I took my boots off quietly after that. It didn't stop there. She started getting edgy when my shifts ran over. "I thought you were done at 8, she texted once at 8:15. "Fire doesn't really look at the clock," I replied, leaning against the engine bay, still in gear. "Right," she wrote back. No emoji. No be safe. At events, she used to anchor herself to my side, hand tucked into my arm, sliding in with a perfectly timed what my husband is too humble to say is. Now, at galas and fundraisers, she floated. I'd be talking to some council member about hydrant testing schedules, and I'd see her across the room, laughing too hard at a joke, hand on someone's forearm, holding eye contact just a second longer than casual. "I'm working," she said the first time I asked about it. "This is my job, Ryan. I need people to like me." "I like you," I said. She smiled a tight little smile. "You don't control the mayor's approval ratings. She started dressing a little different for these things, too. Sharper lines. Lower backs. Higher heels. I'm not a prude, I married a woman who knows she looks good, but something in the intention had shifted. It wasn't I feel good. It was I need to be noticed. I chalked it up to the pressure. Politics is a hungry beast. It eats confidence and spits out insecurity. Looking back, I should have paid more attention. Smelled the smoke earlier. But when you trust someone, you assume the heat you feel is coming from somewhere else. The night everything lit up was the Denver City Charity Ball, one of those events where everyone wears suits they secretly hate, takes pictures for social media, and pretends the rubber chicken tastes like steak. I hate those nights. Give me a 3-alarm fire over small talk in a tux any day. But the mayor made a big deal about having his fire chief there for the cameras, and as Madison put it, you owe me at least one evening a month where you clean up and don't smell like gasoline. So I went. The ballroom was packed. String lights, a jazz band, donors lined up at the bar. Madison looked incredible in a dark blue dress that made every other press aide in the room look like they were playing dress-up. "You clean up nice, Chief," she said, straightening my tie. "You too," I said. "Don't tell OSHA I wore cufflinks instead of gloves." The first hour went as expected, introductions, quick photo ops, me saying things like, "We couldn't do what we do without the community's support" on repeat like a broken record. Then the band kicked into something slow and smooth, and I heard the MC say, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, our mayor would like to invite our city's first public servant and his lovely press secretary to the dance floor." I turned, just in time to see the mayor extending his hand toward Madison. She glanced at me. "He insists," she murmured. "PR." I forced a smile. "Sure." They moved to the center of the floor. The band shifted into some classic jazz standard. Cameras followed them like sharks. At first, it was fine. 2 politicians dancing. Standard optics. Then I saw her lean in. Much closer than necessary. She said something in his ear. He laughed, his hand sliding a fraction lower on her back. Flashbulbs went off. People around me murmured. My stomach did a slow, ugly roll. I told myself I was imagining it. That this is what happens at fancy events. That my jealousy was inventing things. I went to find a drink that was mostly ice. 2 days later, the photo hit the press. Front page of one of the local sites. There they were, the mayor and my wife, in soft lighting, her lips close to his ear, his face turned toward her, both of them wearing expressions that had nothing to do with zoning regulations. The headline said something harmless like, "Mayor and Press Secretary share a laugh at charity ball." The comments section said other things. I stared at that picture so long the screen blurred. Not because of what I thought they were doing, but because of what it all meant. Appearances. Whispers. Power. Madison walked into the kitchen as I was still at the table, laptop open. "You've seen it?" she said, dropping her bag. "Hard not to," I said. "My battalion chief emailed it to me with the subject line 'Yikes.'" She rolled her eyes. "He needs a new hobby." "Is there anything you want to tell me?" I asked. Her jaw clenched. "It's a bad angle, Ryan. That's all. I was doing my job." "Your job involves whispering in his ear now?" I asked. "Because that's not in my copy of the charter." She stepped closer, dropped her voice. "Careful," she said. "If you start throwing accusations around, this gets ugly fast." "Ugly how?" I said. "Ugly like my wife and my boss are real cozy at a taxpayer-funded ball ugly?" Her eyes flashed. "You think you're untouchable because you pull people out of burning buildings. But your budget comes from his office. Your equipment, your staffing, your training. You go after him? You go public with this? You could lose your job." Something in her tone changed. It wasn't panic. It was threat. "If you talk," she said, each word slow, "you will lose your position. The mayor controls the budget. You know that." I stared at her. There are moments in life where a line appears in front of you, so bright you can almost hear it hum. Before and after. We had fought before. We had hurt each other before, in the small ways couples do. But she had never threatened my calling. Never pointed at my career and said, "I'll take that if you don't behave." "Wow," I said quietly. "There it is." "There what is?" she snapped. "The moment you forgot what team you're on," I said. "Good to know." She scoffed. "You're being dramatic. All I'm saying is, be smart. Don't blow up your life over one flattering picture." "That what we're calling it?" I asked. "Flattering?" She grabbed a bottle of water, turned away. "I have a briefing," she said. "We'll talk later." But we didn't. Not really. Because for the next few weeks, I wasn't sure I trusted myself to speak without saying something we couldn't come back from. At the firehouse, I tried to pretend everything was normal. Firefighters are equal parts perceptive and nosy, though. They can read smoke, and they can read faces. "Hey, Chief," one of my captains said casually after roll call, "everything good?" "Sure," I said. "Why?" He shrugged. "You're quieter." And not in a Zen master way. Another guy, someone I'd mentored from probie to lieutenant, stopped lingering in my doorway to talk Broncos. The usual jokes in the kitchen around ball and chain stuff got real quiet when I walked in. I overheard someone say, "Man, did you see that photo? I wouldn't want to be him right now." Then, like any strong, emotionally intelligent leader, I did the bravest thing I could think of. I ran. Technically, I called it taking leave. Got some time saved up, I told HR. Thinking I should use it before it expires. The city loves when you burn vacation. Saves them from paying it out later. No one argued. "You okay, Chief?" my deputy asked. "Just tired," I said. "Thought I'd step back, let you all remember how to function without me." He snorted. "We barely function with you." I appreciated the joke. It didn't help. I took 2 weeks. Then another. I stopped going by the station. I answered only the most urgent calls. The guys, my guys, stopped calling just to check in. Word travels fast in a department. Someone had seen the picture. Someone's wife had screenshotted a comment thread. They didn't know what to say. So they didn't say anything. At home, Madison and I moved like two people renting different halves of the same house. Calendar coordination, basic logistics, but nothing deeper. Every time I thought about bringing it up, I'd hear her voice in my head. "If you talk, you'll lose your job." At 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, that sentence felt like a cage. "I've run into burning warehouses," I muttered to myself one night. "But sure. Let's be scared of a politician in a suit." It was ridiculous. It was also working. And that's when the other voice showed up. Not hers. Mine. A thought, clear and stubborn, cutting through the pity party like a siren. "I've spent my life saving other people's lives. I'm not going to let anyone burn mine down." It was cheesy. It was dramatic. It was also true. I sat up in bed. "I've crawled through fire," I whispered. "I've dragged people out by their collars. I am not going to sit here and watch someone who shares my last name and someone who signs my paycheck torch everything I believe in." The lion, as they say, woke up. And once he's awake, good luck putting him back to sleep. Now, I'm not an investigative journalist or a cop. I'm a firefighter. My skill set is more force entry and vent the roof than trace financial misconduct through layered shell companies. But you don't run a department without knowing a lot of people in city government. And in my case, one of those people was an old buddy named Carlos who worked in the mayor's office as a policy analyst. We'd gone to high school together. He'd stayed in Denver while I went off to the academy. We played pickup basketball, complained about property taxes, occasionally met for beers and griped about city bureaucracy. He was also a good man. The kind of guy who'd never take a dime under the table even if you handed him the table too. I texted him. "You around this week? Need to talk." "Not about football." He replied instantly. "That's serious, huh? Wednesday? Usual bar?" We met in a corner booth, two middle-aged guys nursing light beers under dim lights. There's a certain look men have when they know another man is in trouble. He had it. "You look like hell, Chief," he said. "Been a ride," I said. "Carlos, I need to ask you something. And I need you to say no if it puts you over a line." "Okay," he said cautiously. "How cooked is the mayor's office?" I asked. Off the record. Just between two guys who used to fail algebra together. He exhaled slowly. "Define cooked. Are we talking overripe mango or full rotisserie chicken?" I said. He hesitated. That told me plenty. "There have been concerns," he said finally. "Budget allocations that don't make sense. City contracts going to friends. Stuff that smells bad but hasn't tripped any alarms big enough for the state to care yet." "And Madison?" I asked. He looked genuinely pained. "She's in the middle of a lot of it," he said. "Messaging. Strategy. Setting up meetings with donors who also happen to get nice construction bids. Look, man, she's good at what she does. Too good. Sometimes she pushes hard in ways that feel off." "Any of that on paper?" I asked. "Emails. Memos. Contracts." He stared at me. "Why?" he asked. "You're the fire chief, not the DA." "Because my wife threatened to use the budget as a weapon to shut me up," I said. "Because she's cozy with the mayor you just described like a slow-moving train wreck. Because there's a picture of them flirting on the front page, and when I asked about it, she pointed at my job like a match at a gas can." He rubbed his face. "Jesus, Ryan," he said. "I thought things were rocky. I didn't think they were call a lawyer bad." "Welcome to the blaze," I said. He was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "If I share anything, it can't come back to me. At all. I have kids. A mortgage. I can't be the martyr here." "I'm not asking you to be," I said. "I'm asking you to tell me if the house is already burning so I can decide whether to hit the alarm." He sighed. "There are internal reports," he said. "Audits. Drafts that were buried. A few contracts signed under questionable circumstances. If someone outside our little bubble saw them it would not look good for his honor. Or his staff." "Madison included," I said. He nodded once. "Yeah. Can you get me copies?" I asked. He stared at me like I'd just asked him to run into a burning chemical plant without gear. "You're really going to go after them," he said. "I'm really not going to let them keep doing whatever they're doing while they hang my job over my head like a noose," I said. "If I find nothing, I burn the printouts and delete the files. If I find something I take it to people whose job it actually is to deal with this." He leaned back, stared at the TV over the bar for a bit, then back at me. "You didn't hear this from me," he said. "And if anyone asks, you got it from a concerned anonymous staffer." "That still exists?" I said. "Anonymous staffers? I thought you all came with name tags and microphones now." He cracked a small smile. "Some of us still like the shadows." 3 days later, there was a plain manila envelope in my mailbox. No return address. No note. Just a USB drive and a few printed pages. I plugged it into my laptop like it was going to bite me. What it showed was worse than I expected. It wasn't one big smoking gun. That's the thing about most real-world corruption, it's more mold than dynamite. Small spots everywhere that, when you zoom out, show a pattern. Emails where developers encouraged donations to the mayor's political allies right before landing city contracts. Internal memos where staff raised concerns and were told to be team players. Meeting notes with Madison's name all over them, pushing for friendly vendors, flexible procurement, expedited approvals. There was one particular chain that made my blood run cold, a back and forth about reallocating a chunk of emergency services funds to a community engagement initiative run by one of the mayor's donors. Madison's comment at the bottom. "We can spin this as prevention over reaction. Chief Hale will adapt." She was casually redirecting money away from my people, my firefighters, my stations, to some vanity project, assuming I'd adapt. And she'd never even mentioned it to me. There were also hints of financial impropriety that went beyond bad budgeting. Side agreements. Undisclosed gifts. trips that looked suspiciously paid for by people who shouldn't be paying for anything. Her fingerprints were everywhere. Maybe not signing the checks, but crafting the messaging, smoothing the optics, selling the story. If I looked at it solely as a husband, I might have just felt betrayed. But I was looking at it as a firefighter. And what I saw was a fire spreading through my city. The mayor's office wasn't just playing politics. They were playing with lives. With the systems that kept trucks fueled, radios working, gear replaced before it failed on a call. And Madison, my wife, was helping them. Her assumptions about me floated back. You won't talk. You won't hurt your own department. You won't hurt the city. She thought my loyalty to Denver would keep me silent. She didn't realize my loyalty to Denver was exactly why I couldn't be. I called a lawyer first. Always call a lawyer first. A guy I trusted, old school, no BS type. He listened, didn't interrupt, then said, "You're sitting on a hell of a pile here, Chief." "I know," I said. "Question is, do I hand it to the DA quietly, or do I light up a press conference?" He tapped his pen. "Both," he said. "In that order." "Won't the DA be mad if I go public?" I asked. "He'll be mad if you go public before he sees it," the lawyer said. "But if you walk into the district attorney's office first, put this on his desk, and say, 'I'm here as a whistleblower and a citizen, not just a department head,' he'll listen. Then, when the time is right, he'll appreciate someone else taking the mic to frame the story." "Frame the story," I repeated. "You sound like my wife." "Yeah, well," he said, "sometimes the right side has to fight just as hard for the narrative as the wrong side." I went to the DA. Brought the printed documents. Gave them the drive. Answered questions. Told them everything I knew and, more importantly, what I didn't. Made it very clear I wanted to protect my department, not blow it up. They took it from there: subpoenas, investigators, quiet interviews in back offices. Government machine stuff. Madison still had no idea. At home, she moved around with that smug, brittle confidence, the kind that comes from thinking the worst thing someone can do to you is talk. One night, over a dinner we were both picking at more than eating, she said, "You've calmed down. Good. I knew you'd come to your senses." "Is that what I've done?" I asked. She nodded, took a sip of wine. "You love this city," she said. "You wouldn't do anything to hurt it just to get back at me." "You're right about one thing," I said. "I do love this city." She smiled faintly, like she'd scored a point. She had no idea the scoreboard had already changed. The press conference was the DA's idea, not mine. "We're filing charges," he said over the phone. "Misuse of public funds, fraud, a few other fun things. Grand jury's been convened. But the public has to hear from someone they trust." "I'm not sure they trust me," I said. "Last time my name was in the paper, my wife was whispering in the mayor's ear." "You're the fire chief," he said. "People trust firefighters more than they trust almost anyone. You run into burning buildings. We run into microphones. You're the better face." I sighed. "You rehearsing that line, or did it just come to you?" "Been saving it all week," he admitted. We set it up on the courthouse steps. Just like in the movies, except the coffee was worse and there were more wires. I wore my dress uniform. Not for drama. For clarity. I wanted everyone who saw me to know exactly who I was and what I represented. When I stepped up to the podium, there were more cameras than I expected. Local news. Regional. Even one of the national cable logos tucked in the back. "Good afternoon," I said, squinting in the Colorado sun. "My name is Chief Ryan Hale. I've served in the Denver Fire Department for 25 years, the last 5 as your chief." Flashes popped. I kept going. "I'm here today not just as a firefighter, but as a citizen," I said. "Recently, I became aware of information suggesting serious misconduct in the mayor's office, including the misuse of public funds and unethical behavior involving city contracts." I didn't mention the picture. Or the affair. That wasn't the point today. "I brought that information to the district attorney," I said. They conducted their own investigation and have decided to bring charges. Those details will come from them. I'm not here to talk law. I'm here to talk about trust. I looked straight into the nearest camera. Every day, my firefighters and I roll out of stations to emergencies all over this city, I said. People trust that when they call 911, we'll show up. That will do the right thing. That will put their safety above everything else. That trust is sacred. I let that land. The same should be true of anyone who holds public office, I went on. Your mayor. His staff. My own office. If we know something is wrong and we say nothing, we are complicit. That's not who I am. That's not who this department is. And it is not who this city deserves. A reporter shouted, "Chief, isn't your wife part of the mayor's office?" I nodded. That one was coming. Yes, I said. My wife, Madison Hale, is part of that staff and is included in some of the documents now under review. That makes this deeply personal and deeply painful. But I didn't take this oath to protect my marriage. I took it to protect this city. That quote ended up everywhere, by the way. Good thing I meant it. I will not comment on the case as it proceeds, I said. That's for the courts. What I will say is this: Denver is stronger than any one politician, any one scandal. We can and will clean house where we need to and keep doing the work that matters, keeping people safe. I stepped back. The DA took over, rattling off statutes and indictments. Questions flew. Names were named. The mayor's, prominently. Madison's, included. Somewhere across town, I imagined her watching the broadcast, realizing the fire she'd assumed I was too afraid to start was already halfway through the building. The fallout was fast. Within a week, the mayor announced he was temporarily stepping back to focus on his legal defense. Within 2, the city council voted to strip him of most of his authority. Within a month, he resigned to avoid further distractions for the city he loved so much. Madison was placed on administrative leave first, then publicly identified as a person of interest in the widening investigation. She hired a lawyer. Issued a carefully worded statement about trusting the process. At home, for the little time she still spent there, she was furious. "You couldn't just go after him," she said. "You had to drag me into it?" "I didn't drag you anywhere," I said. "You walked into those rooms on your own. You wrote those emails. You pushed those decisions. I didn't put your name on anything. You humiliated me," she spat. "In front of the whole city." "Better than robbing them quietly," I said. The divorce papers came shortly after. Honestly, by then, it was a formality. People asked me if I was okay. Not just you holding up? But really okay. The answer was complicated. My marriage had exploded. The man who'd signed my paycheck was under indictment. Half my social circle now existed in awkward gray areas of "we support you but also we have to keep our jobs." And yet at my core, I felt steadier than I had in months. I'd walked into the fire, on purpose, and I'd come out the other side alive. For a firefighter, there's a specific kind of peace in that. Stepping down as chief wasn't forced. Not exactly. But it felt right. I stayed through the transition. Helped brief my deputy, who took over as acting chief. Made sure the budget was locked in and the trucks would keep rolling. Then I sat down with the city manager. "I'm not quitting," I said. "I'm just turning a page." "This about everything with the mayor?" she asked. "It's about everything," I said. "I love this department. I die for these people. But every time a camera shows up now, the story's half about fire safety and half about my marriage. That's not fair to anyone." She nodded slowly. "What will you do?" she asked. That was the question I'd been chewing on. In the weeks following the press conference, I had heard from a lot of people. Retired firefighters. Small-town chiefs. Volunteers from rural districts who'd seen the coverage and reached out with some version of, "Hey, chief, you got a minute? We've got no training, no budget, and we're doing the best we can with duct tape and hope." It reminded me of where I'd started, before the white helmet, before the fancy uniform. Just a kid in turnout gear, learning to pull hose and hope he didn't screw up. "I think I want to teach," I said. Not at a university. On the ground. We've got dozens of volunteer departments along the Front Range. Hundreds across the state. Folks who run into the same kinds of fires with a tenth of the resources. They need help. Real, structured, serious help. She smiled. That sounds exactly like you. So I took all the savings I'd been hoarding for some vague one day, found an affordable old warehouse on the edge of town, slapped on some paint, installed a training tower, collected donated gear, begged a few manufacturers for discounted equipment, and opened something I'd been sketching on napkins for months. Honor Under Fire, Volunteer Fire Academy. Yeah, it's a little dramatic. So's running into a burning building with your neighbor's house key in your pocket. We started small. Weekend workshops. Basic skills. Search and rescue drills. Pump operations. Live burns in a controlled environment. Then it grew. Departments sent their rookies. Then their officers. We added leadership modules, mental health talks, community outreach training. One day, halfway through a class on Size Up and Incident Command, a 20-year-old kid from a small town raised his hand and said, "Chief Hale, how'd you end up doing this instead of the big city?" The other students laughed. They'd seen the news. They knew. I thought about my answer. I spent a lot of years being in charge of a very big, very complicated machine, I said. And I loved it. But somewhere along the way, I realized my favorite part was never the press conferences or the meetings. It was right here, showing someone how to put their mask on right, how to read a roof, how to not get killed doing a job that already tries pretty hard to kill you. And the whole mayor thing? One of them asked carefully. I smiled. Sometimes, life goes sideways. People you trust let you down. You can either let that burn you up, or you can use it as fuel for whatever you build next. For me, that's this place. They nodded. We went back to practicing Mayday calls. Later that day, as I locked up, I looked at the sign over the door. Honor Under Fire. For years, I thought honor meant keeping your head down. Staying out of politics. Being a team player. Now I know honor is a lot messier. Sometimes it means blowing the whistle on your own house. Sometimes it means letting your personal life get dragged across the 6 o'clock news because telling the truth matters more than your pride. And yeah, a few years down the line, I can laugh about parts of it. Not because it didn't hurt. But because it didn't win. The mayor lost his office. Madison lost the power she thought would always protect her. The city, slowly, began to clean itself up. And me? I got my life back. Smoke-stained, scarred, a little cinched around the edges. But still standing. Still heading into fires, just a different kind now. And this time, I'm the one choosing which ones to walk into. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.